Let's just jump straight into this one. We're going to be having a discussion today about fear, and specifically blocked energy, blocked static energy that's not really moving, that's not really flowing, and how when this energy is static like that, when it gets blocked like that and you don't know how to release it, it can postpone you for a very, very long time. It can give you the sense that you're not able to move in the direction that you want to move in, that you're not able to cultivate the kind of lifestyle that you want to cultivate, the kind of relationship that you want to have. You can't attract the kind of relationship that you want to have. You maybe can't release the project that you really care about, the thing that you're passionate about, you're interested in. It might even be something as simple as like you don't believe that you can sit down and meditate for 20 minutes a day. And you maybe have this kind of like belief or this sense that I'm not able to get in that state, or I'm not that kind of person, or I have this condition or that thing that prevents me. And all those thoughts and all those feelings all have their own place in their own way, and they can all be investigated individually, if you like. But what I want to be able to tell you right now, and I think this is the thing that a lot of us need to hear a lot of the time, is that there is really actually no reason that you can't do the thing that you want to do. And most of the sense of not being able to is not actually about some external blockage out there, as much as your mind may tell you that, and as much as your mind may ruminate and fixate on data and information, that's the reason you can't have what it is that you want to have, or be where it is that you want to be, I should say. A lot of the time it is basically just to do with feeling tones that are blocked, they're static, they're underlying the thoughts. So there can be millions of thoughts coming up about this topic and about this situation, but the thoughts are emanating up from that feeling tone that if it's not really felt through, and if it's not given an opportunity to be able to be processed, to flow, to move through you, it's going to keep you in a state of feeling stuck like that. And this can be very pernicious over time. The reason I think this is really quite urgent, and I want you to pay attention to this video, I want you to actually, we're not necessarily going to do negative visualization like the Stoic thing, but I want you to recognize what this costs you. I really want you to be able to get a clear sense of what it costs you to have this blocked feeling, or these blocked feelings, these static emotions that underlie this sense of I can't, or I can't move in a certain direction. This stuff that keeps you below the courage that you're really capable of. Let's say that you have someone in your life you're really close with, and you have an argument with them, or you have a disagreement with them. And this relationship brings you so much fulfillment. It brings them so much fulfillment. But this argument just causes a clash. And then when the clash comes up, there's the felt sense of being misunderstood or rejected. There's the felt sense of this person doesn't care about me, doesn't understand me. And surely in your life you've met someone, or maybe you have a friend you know, or you've heard this as an example, I've got examples of this, where that relationship could be on hold for 10 or 20 years after that, right? Just because of that blocked feeling there, where if it was resolved, if it was actually felt through and communicated quickly, all that relationship, all the benefit of that relationship could go on. And just notice how it's just that like one feeling tone, but when it's not addressed, it can create a block for the whole system. And I'm using that example specifically here just to register that like the amount of care and love and benefit that can come from that relationship that's ultimately put on hold because of that one blocked feeling. And you can then apply that analogy to any area. Let's say there's a project that you really want to work on, something you really want to create, your art form, your passion, the thing that you're really into. And just because maybe one thing didn't really go right, or maybe one person criticized your work, or maybe you released something and it didn't get the attention that you expected it to, or maybe just a self-judgment or a judgment from a family member or a friend or something like that. Just because of that, there can be this underlying felt sense that my stuff isn't good enough, or I'm not going to be able to be where I want to be. And thoughts can emanate up, like we said again, we want to repeat this so it's really clear. Thoughts emanate out from that underlying feeling tone. And then for years you can have a blockage there, and it can disallow you from being able to actually do something great with the thing that you're creating. I just want you to notice how when that happens, when that narrative takes hold, it looks like that's reality, but it really is glasses. It really is tinted lenses. I want you to be able to see how just because it's rendering your perspective in that way doesn't mean that you can't actually do the thing. It is actually a feeling. And a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to push against that and fight the feeling. And at least with the pride and the anger there, at least there's a sense of trying to do something about it, and that can work, that can be good. There's a lot of there's a lot of energy in anger and pride like that. But we want to give you something here that's more comprehensive, so you don't have to feel like you're fighting or hustling, but you can actually enjoy achieving what it is that you want to, or rectifying situations that challenge you. And you can look at life in a way where things that come up that are difficult are actually challenging and sometimes even quite exciting to work with, rather than just some slog that you have to grind through. So we've got those two examples, but I want you to be able to look at that yourself and see how that can apply to any area. It can apply to a relationship, cultivating a high quality relationship, can apply to your health, your spiritual practice. If there is a feeling there, a limiting feeling and a stuck feeling, what we often try to do is we just try to move around the feeling by repressing it. So what repressing is consciously trying to push something away. And a lot of the time, through no fault of their own, they usually just say this because they don't know how to deal with it themselves. But our friends and family members and our culture a lot of the time will endorse this repression. And the way they'll do that is you'll tell them what's going on, and instead of actually sitting with the feeling, like how many times do your friends or family members say to you, like, why don't you allow yourself to feel that fully? And this is a safe space, and I'm here with you. I'm here with you to feel this and to experience this with you. Like, just in my experience, that doesn't happen very often. Unless you have a certain kind of friends or a certain kind of family. Usually what happens is, what do people say? They tell you to distract yourself, right? Go watch TV. Oh, keep yourself busy. Do more work. Let's do this. Let's eat an ice cream. And sometimes it's good to have a distraction. Sometimes it's more conducive just to go towards something like that than ruminating in negative emotion if it's digesting you and you don't know how to process it. But that's not a sustainable, tenable solution for these underlying feelings, right? You still have them there. They're still operating there. Just because you ate an ice cream or you watched a TV show or you went and worked more doesn't mean that anything actually happened there. And like I said, this is through no fault of their own, but this is usually the advice we get, and it's the advice we come to rely on ourselves. If there's difficult things going on in us, we just want to kind of push them down or distract ourselves. And this can actually often lead to pretty strong addictions. Like maybe we're overeating or taking substances or utilizing, being too promiscuous, and we're coming from that place of just wanting to get away from it. So that's like repression. Repression is sort of like doing something to push it down. The issue of suppression is a little bit more complex because it's an unconscious hiding. And this is usually a result of like quite strong, deeply rooted beliefs or feeling tones under the beliefs, to be honest. And they can come from childhood trauma or even just sort of like karmic debt. Like they're quite deep things usually where there's suppression involved. But also it can be superficial. Sometimes we just are so unused to dealing with things that we basically repress on an unconscious level without really knowing that we're doing it. We don't really even know, like some people don't even know that watching television for 5 hours in the evening is a distraction. They just look at it like, I just watched television for 5 hours in the evening. And you can only really see how dependent they are on it when they take time off of it and they're actually just sitting in a room quietly alone with themselves. And then most people think that's a form of torture. But that tells you something in itself, right? Is it really a form of torture to just be present and to be somewhere without needing something to distract you? It's actually quite shocking that that's a sort of consensus gentium that we seem to share, that it's torture to not have something. Or you would talk to people, hang out with people, and they'll say, I'm just putting some TV on for the background noise. Something I used to notice in my family a lot, the background noise. And it's like, why do you constantly need some noise or thing there? It makes you wonder. Anyway, suppression, repression, Expression as well, just expressing things out and talking them out, but not necessarily in a way to get anywhere with it, but just to sort of complain about it and release some of the energy behind it temporarily, but it's not really doing anything with it, so it just circulates back. Anyway, it's basically, I want you to notice how what we often do is we work towards anything that allows us not to feel the thing. I just want that to land for a second. Notice how on the simplest level, when it comes to things that are really difficult for us to feel, these limiting and blocked static feelings, in whatever situation, we tend to do whatever it is we can do just not to feel it. Just not to let it be here right now, not to let it move through. But what we're realizing over time, and what this is really about here, I'm sure you're seeing, is that postpones us and keeps us trapped for a long time, having to react and live as a slave basically to these kinds of feelings. We have to base so much of our life around avoiding, that there's not actually fresh, new, vital energy moving through the system. That fresh, new, vital energy is the kind of energy that vivifies our relationships and brings spontaneity and fun, playfulness, presence into our connections with other beings. It's the kind of energy that when we create something, it comes from that spontaneous place. Again, it just moves right through. It's the kind of thing where when you need that new job, you're going out and it's a challenge for you. It's not like some fearful slog, but it's a challenge to find that new opportunity. It's the kind of thing where when you book a trip, you're excited just to be in the place and feel the energy of different situations and circumstances. It's the kind of thing where you come home at 9 o'clock at night and you're going to be awake for 2 more hours and you're just okay to be there presently in your room, just being there. It's the aliveness in the moment. I want you to get a sense for what we're talking about. When emotions and feelings move through naturally, there's an aliveness and a presence to experience. It's not about feeling good. It can be pleasurable. It can be enjoyable when we're not fighting life because we're flowing downstream. There's a kind of pleasure in that, but it's not about the pleasure. It's about truth with ourselves, and it's about getting in touch with what's really felt, and not like a megalomaniac of some kind trying to manage everything in our experience. So what does this really look like directly? How do we actually really do this? When that blocked feeling comes up, let's take the example of the relationship again, that we used earlier. When that blocked feeling comes up and we're feeling that sense of frustration towards that person, notice how when the frustration comes up, there's probably a mental image and then there's a corresponding narrative. There's a sense of that person's this way and they did this and they need to, and notice how quickly the mind takes it in a certain direction, and the feeling is still felt, but it's like, because we're not fully comfortable with it, it's like, yeah, I shouldn't feel, but it's like this kind of sense of still trying to avoid it and project it out. Or sometimes that's usually what's referred to psychiatrically as character disorder. It's a sense of projecting everything out. But also there's another side of it, and it's called neuroticism, right? Neuroticism is often when it turns inward, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm such a piece of shit. I do this all the time. I always do this. I destroy everything I touch. It's a neurotic narrative about towards the self, and the other one is towards the other, but they both share the common theme of avoiding the underlying energy. The energy runs us rather than being investigated. So really, as simple as it is, the key is just when that frustration comes up, whether it's to do with the other person or ourselves, what we're doing is we're just asking ourselves, what is the underlying feeling here that I'm trying to avoid? Or that I'm seeking to run away from, that I'm looking to get away from here? What is that underlying feeling? And the frustration. And just for a split second there, notice what the feeling is without having a narrative about why you have it or what you're going to do about it. But just notice that the feeling's there. There is actually just frustration right now. It's right here. And you can even gently ask, without having to think about it too much, just gently asking, where is this taking place? What is this like? Just getting in touch with what it is. And notice that when you get in touch with the actual energy, you might feel it in the body. It might be in a certain place. It might be in the chest. It might be in the head. It might be hot. It might be cool. It might actually move as soon as you go towards it. Whatever happens once you start to get in touch with the feeling is completely okay. But just noticing where it is, just the sense of it. You don't have to know where it comes from or what it's doing or if it's valid or invalid. The assumption is just that it's completely valid because your experience is valid no matter what. So it's just there. What is the feeling that I'm looking to avoid or that I'm looking to escape from, that I'm afraid of feeling here? It's just gently settling back on the feeling. When you're able to be in the feeling like that, notice how there'll be a lot of thoughts probably and noise, and you might slip out of it right away. The easiest way to look at this is imagine like the mind is constantly trying to grasp something else or to make sense of it. That's what it does. That's its operating function. If you didn't have a liver, you wouldn't filter trace chemicals out through your system. And if you didn't have a heart, you wouldn't have oxygen flowing through your veins into your blood vessels. If you didn't have a mind, you wouldn't be trying to understand stuff. So just notice that the mind is performing its function there, and we pat it on the head. We're not mad at it. It's just trying to grasp at things. The simple shift that I would suggest here is instead, when the mind is trying to grasp at things, notice how you can just open the hand. Don't try to not think, because it's a battle that you'll lose. You will know that if you've practiced meditation. It's a battle that you'll always lose. So just allow the thoughts to occur, but recenter yourself back in the feeling. And it might be easier for you to keep your eyes open. It might be easier to close them. Whatever gets you in touch with it. And just allowing it to be there and focusing on welcoming the feeling. I know this can seem quite counterintuitive, and this requires a little bit of trust. So trust yourself here. Just welcoming the feeling and letting down the sense of escaping it. I mean, if you need to escape it in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you can have it back. Don't worry about that. But right now, just welcoming it, being there. What I like to sometimes do here is I like to actually just repeat a phrase once in a while, which is just welcoming this. It's just a intention, navigation, welcoming this. You're just allowing the feeling to be there in or around the body energetically and just welcoming it. Where we're so used to sometimes fighting it or being scared of it, or when we're scared of it, it creates another feeling of fear that's then on top of the feeling, and then there's a guilt feeling around. There's this cluster and this metastasizing of all these feelings. But here, again, the simple practice is just, what is the feeling that I'm looking to avoid, and going back to what it actually is and welcoming it. And just sit with that for a while and notice what it's like to actually be in touch with it and welcome it. And you might even notice after a while, it's like this funny thing can happen. I want you to be able to see this for yourself, where you're like, the feeling's not actually that bad. It's the way I thought about it was bad. It's the fear of fear itself, but the feeling is actually it's just energy. And the more in touch with it you are, it's like the more you notice that energy is actually just flowing through. And if you find that you're resisting again or you're analyzing it, that's completely okay. The mind is just doing what it's doing. Just notice that grasping. Open the hand of the mind. Allow those thoughts to move through. They're just clouds moving past the sky of awareness. Allow them to flow through. Don't think about how to flow them through. Just allow them to flow through. Return back. What is the feeling? What is the underlying feeling here? What is the feeling I'm trying to avoid? Or maybe I'm not trying to avoid it anymore. Do this the way you trust yourself a little bit here. It's not a specific set of rules. It's just a sense of getting in touch with what it is. Like I said, it might be easier for you to stand up, sit down, Laying down can be a risk here. You might go to sleep. But it's just that sense of being able to be in touch with it the way that you can and welcome it there. And as this is moving, if you're starting to notice, if you're not getting to the point where this actually just comes to be something that you're noticing is moving through, and it's not actually that bad, and it's kind of, there's a bit of a relief, that's okay. Just continue to work on welcoming it. And you might do that for a while. Just when you notice the feeling come up over the next couple of weeks, you might just sit for 5 or 10 minutes and focus on welcoming it. And over time, you'll notice there is a bit of a loosening of the grip. If you are noticing that right away, the second aspect here is, and I know there's going to be a tendency for some of you who are quite intellectual to want to know exactly how to do this, but I want you to listen to this with your intuition. Focus on releasing the energy behind it. Once it's welcomed there and you're not fighting it as much, release the energy. And again, how do I release the energy? Just allow it to flow through and intuitively trust that you can release that energy naturally by being in touch with it. You're not trying to do anything with it. You're not funneling it out. You're not connecting to a chakra. You're not visualizing something. That's all got its place. This is not that. This is just being with what it is. I want you to be aware that this is something that might be quite confronting as well if you haven't got in touch with these feelings. A lot of us never actually learn to get in touch with feelings and emotions, and we can actually be taught from quite a young age that it's actually not safe or it's not okay to feel certain things. Or we're in positions where if we felt a certain feeling or a certain emotion, we might get chastised for it, or it was just kind of known that it wasn't okay in our family or our culture or our peer group, whatever. Relationships can be like this. And it's a topic for another video, but it can be quite a bit. So be gentle with yourself and go at this at your own pace, but just centering on that sense of what it is that's actually being felt and welcoming it. And if it's being welcomed and if there's a softening and a sort of opening there, releasing some of the energy behind it. Don't worry about what's going to happen or how it's going to work. Just trust yourself and trust the process. Part of developing a strong sense of core safety and trust in life is actually practicing trust. And this is a way of practicing the trust and the sovereignty of your own systems and your own vehicles to process the way that they need to without needing to fight against it. So that's pretty much the whole work ethic behind this. If this is something you feel like you'd like assistance with, or you'd like help with, or there's something you're not quite grasping, I'll leave my email down below and shoot me an email. We'll jump in a call together. This can sometimes be something that's really good to talk to with someone. If there's some specific thing that you want to pick my brain on with it, or maybe you're just noticing there's something that's not really quite moving and you feel like you'd get value out of having a space to share it or discuss it or have a direct pointer, I'd be happy to do that. I'm thinking there's not really anything else to add to this either. This is something that I've been working on a lot, and I think this is going to be really significant for you, particularly if you're someone who's really been working with something stuck for a while. Take your time with this. Allow it to become your own practice. Consider some of the points without analyzing them. Just get a sense for where they are, where they land for you. Appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for everyone who has subscribed recently. I really appreciate it. I'm enjoying these sort of more free associative style videos. Just like I have stopped even editing the beginning and just like turning on the camera feels like it really puts me in that place where it's like, okay, here's some information, here's something to share. So I appreciate you all who have subscribed recently. Appreciate you liking the video, sharing this to anyone you feel like might get value out of it. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.